right, here we are another night where there's nowhere to go, nothing to do, and no one to look up to. All the great podcast themes have been turned into podcast theme parks, and I don't know about you, but...
Hello, baby, I've been waiting for a Christian Slater podcast.
Welcome back to the third episode of Christian Slater Monitor. I'm Oswald Ramirez. This is
Reno, Carson.
We're going to be talking about 1996's Broken Arrow. Had you seen this movie before?
I hadn't even heard of this movie before.
Really?
Actually. Which is weird because I guess it was a hit movie, but I don't remember it at all.
This was a hit movie.
I don't remember it.
I saw this movie at the theater in 1996 and never again until you suggested we watch it for this because you love John Travolta. Why do you love John Travolta? Just to reiterate for the audience from last time.
I just think John Travolta is the hammiest actor in the world. He's the most ridiculous actor that exists, basically. Well, besides, it's him and Nicolas Cage, who are both in Face Off together, which I did watch after I watched Broken Arrow, because in my mind, I kept thinking, Face Off is great. Why is this movie so bad? And then I had to rewatch Face Off because I kept thinking maybe it's worse than it is in my memory. But it's not. It's amazing. I stand by that. Face Off is amazing, but Broken Arrow is terrible.
This movie to me always felt like what they would call a programmer. Like, we just need an action movie here. Anything will do. And it has no ideas. This is written by Graham Yost, who wrote Speed, and he would write Christian Slater's action film Hard Rain, known as Flood, and would eventually go on to write the show Justified, and I believe has other credits here and there. But he really did seem to specialize in sort of updating old Western themes into modern stories. And in Speed, he had the hook with the bus, and in Hard Rain, he had the flood. Here, he's really got nothing. He's got kind of a desert Western story, but updated to be about disillusionment with working in the military and nuclear arms, and then just sort of knowing what military things would happen if nuclear arms got loose in America. But yeah, pretty...
Which is just not, again, not my cup of tea. Anything having to do with nuclear arms or the military, not my cup of tea. Although we did disagree. I love the movie The Rock.
Yes.
And so I thought maybe I would like this movie because I do kind of like, this is my most controversial film, but I kind of like Michael Bay. I think he's kind of sort of a Quentin Tarantino director, and people would really get on me for making that comparison, but it's just, he makes movies that are just super entertaining.
It's not as big of a fan.
Obviously,
no.
Quentin Tarantino is more of an artist, but I don't like all of Michael Bay's movies, but I do like The Rock and Armageddon and that kind of shit. The shit that's like in the Criterion collection, I do like. But this is not that. It was not that. It was not good.
Now, this movie seems, in some ways, to be harkening back. This movie seems to be into the Sam Peckinpah movies, and especially Ride the High Country, although it doesn't have any ideas, really.
I love Sam Peckinpah. And, I don't know. This also looks like shit to me, which is kind of shocking too, considering the terrain and where it was filmed.
You're right. It's the most beautiful country, right?
I love the desert. I grew up in the desert.
It's Utah.
And this just does not do it justice. It looks so bad. I just compare this to Casino or something where you got these beautiful desert shots in Nevada and stuff. And this just, they did nothing with, I heard somebody say that this movie was beautiful or something in one of the reviews, and it is not beautiful.
Well, they got a lot of rich color on those canyons.
They did not do it justice.
Interesting.
See, I don't even think, it didn't even look, it just looked bland, and I don't know. It did not look good to me either on any type of level. The special effects and stuff looked really horrible to me. It reminded me of when I was in high school and college. I used to watch a lot of like softcore porn type of movies, just low budget, horrible Emmanuel type of movies. Sure. We would get high and watch softcore porn all the time. This reminds me of that kind of, the way it looks, it reminds me a little bit of that. That's kind of the look it had for me personally. / certain times when they were flying and stuff, it reminded me of a Saturday Night Live sketch meets softcore porn is what it looks like.
To me, the movie this is the kind of movie I hated this movie. to me, the whole thing felt like a business transaction. There just was no love in any part of this. It felt like Christian Slater probably signed on because he could use a hit and some kind of credibility as an action star. John Travolta signed on because the money was right and it was a big action movie and he could be an action star. John Woo needed a big movie after his first American movie didn't go well, Hard Target. It was just this kind of fit. They were like, we can sell this to America. This is an easy thing. And it worked. That's what makes me even more angry. I paid to see this fucking movie, and I know people that like this movie. And it's just, to me, it's just like, oh man, this is the most brain dead WWF trash. WWE now. Like, I don't know. I really did not care for this movie. Let's get into the plot.
Begin spoilers.
So it starts off with a boxing match between Major Vic Dick Deakins and Captain Riley Hale, who are U.S. Air Force pilots, top pilots, and they are in a boxing sparring fight against each other, and they are Deakins, played by John Travolta, and Hale, played by Christian Slater. How'd you like this boxing match at the beginning?
I feel like these two just don't work together. Christian Slater and John Travolta just do not feel like they belong in the same cinematic universe. They would never be friends. It just doesn't feel like a realistic relationship.
Yeah, they're supposed to be friends, right? They don't feel like they've ever met before. No. And do you buy John Travolta as this character? And what is this character's deal? Like,
I don't know if I would buy anyone as this character. Maybe I'll get into this a little later into the plot. But I think I kind of like John Travolta a little bit as a villain, actually, because his acting style is so psychotic that what always cracks me up is he's always kind of playing like a ladies' man or something, which is
he's super handsome.
Ridiculous to me. And in this, he could never be like a ladies' man. He has such a flamboyant, like, gay energy. I'm sorry.
Interesting.
Like, let's be honest. He's just not. And I think the energy he kind of brings to me is really crazy. So when he's playing a villain, that works for me. Like, I like him as a villain. But even his crazy, really bizarre acting style just wasn't enough here, unfortunately.
So in this fight, we get a lot of like what will be, this is apparently a lot of the setup of what should be, if this was a Sam Peckinpah movie, the psychological themes and ideas behind the film is that first, I'm kind of made a note of this, of why the different things that, in some old business, I wanted to say that Kirsten Dunst was, one thing that might have hurt her for getting nominated for an Oscar was that Anna Paquin had just won an Oscar as a little girl. And maybe people were less likely to nominate another little girl so soon. And since the last time we talked, the Razzies happened and Mike Lindell won Worst Actor.
What did he act in?
I think a documentary called Absolute Proof.
Because my dream is to actually make a My Pillow movie where maybe he plays himself or John Mouse plays Mike Lindell.
I think a lot of the Razzies this year went to Trump and Mike Lindell in documentaries people made exposing them or something. I'm not sure.
That sounds really lame.
The Razzies there's usually like an angle far beyond what will get press, is what they stay in the news. Oh yeah, and Pump Up the Volume, I wanted to ask, Mark never ever mentions any friends that he had in New York. Do you think he was just a douche or a creepy loner there too? Think he just can't make friends anywhere he's at and made the excuse?
I thought he did, or at least his parents do, or someone makes reference. Doesn't he say that's what he's doing that night, or he gets this radio thing so he can talk to his friends in New York?
Allegedly.
Doesn't somebody say that at some point?
But do we ever hear about any actual friends?
No, I don't know. But that would be kind of a detour.
Sure.
You know?
Sure. I just like to believe that he had no. Oh, in the opening credits, even before this, we get this long list of character actors and actors in this movie. I just wanted to go through some of the actors in this because I don't really want to get into all their little ins and outs throughout the film. But you get John Travolta, Christian Slater, Samantha Mathis is back from Pump Up the Volume as his love interest again. You get Delroy Lindo, who was really riding high. This movie was released a year after, or less than it's just several months after Clockers. And Clockers would get Delroy Lindo maybe an Oscar nomination, I can't recall, but certainly raised his profile and made him like a bigger star for a while. And he's come back to the fore this past year for being in Five Bloods, but had kind of disappeared, I feel like, for a long time. Certainly a good actor. Then you had Bob Gunton is sort of the second villain, and he is the heavy, as they would say. And he had played the heavy in a lot of movies, like in Shawshank Redemption around this time. Never one of my faves. Then I do love Frank Whaley, who plays sort of the kid suit Giles Prentice, and his career really faded after this film. Howie Long, who I think always entertained dreams of being an actor, because I think he appeared in something in the 80s, but then was a professional football player for a long time, and he plays the sort of main henchman of John Travolta, Kelly, who we'll meet later.
The only thing I ever think of with Howie Long is that Rob Halford from Judas Priest said that Howie Long was like his dream man.
Oh,
so
really?
That's what I think of every time I see him.
Well, John Travolta spoke very highly of hanging out with Howie Long on this set. Couldn't talk enough about how much he enjoyed his company. Vondie Curtis Hall is in this, the director of such films as Glitter and Gridlocked, as a military guy who isn't in the movie much. The great Australian actor Jack Thompson plays a chairman from the Joint Chiefs of Staff who doesn't do much. You get the great, we don't even see him on this front page of people, Kurtwood Smith from That 70s Show, among many movies, RoboCop and things, is another government suit guy who doesn't get that much to do. French Stewart shows up as a guy, I think they call him Frenchie, and that was pretty much it.
I don't even remember that.
He was in like one shot of the movie, and he says, so he's at a computer screen and says something, and I think Delroy Lindo says, what you got, Frenchie? He's like, sir, my screen. I don't know. That's my French Stewart impression. Oh.
That's like the vibe of this movie, though.
Yes.
It's just people. There's so many movies like this in the 90s where it's just a bunch of people in military suits in a conference room.
Yes.
And there's a screen on the wall that people are looking at.
They really pushed that genre into they still do it, but what was it? Movies like Deja Vu, just Tony Scott and Jerry Bruckheimer and Michael Bay. Yes, they did so many movies like this, including this one. This feels like a Bruckheimer movie. This is not produced by Bruckheimer. So at any rate, these guys have a fight, a boxing match, and apparently they box a lot. And Travolta's far more experienced boxer and the far better boxer. And he says that first he says that Slater doesn't win because he can't strategize. Then he says he won't win because he doesn't want it enough. And so we're not sure what is the answer. And he explains the rope-a-dope. How familiar are you with the rope-a-dope and Ali's fight in Zaire going into this?
Like Muhammad Ali?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm pretty familiar. I'm a Muhammad Ali. My dad's obsessed with Muhammad Ali. That's his childhood idol and stuff. So I'm familiar.
I'm glad you said that. But for people our age, even, I think everybody knows what the rope-a-dope is. I feel like this is common knowledge. But John Travolta wants to explain this to us in the movie. And they also, looking at the things about this movie online, I looked at the IMDb trivia page, and a lot of the trivia seemed to refer back to a novelization of the movie. So I've got the novelization of the movie. And in the novelization of the movie, this rope-a-dope thing gets explained like 50 times. And nobody's ever heard of the rope-a-dope in the book. And it keeps having to be explained. But in the movie, you almost feel like that's what was in the script. But the actors said, you know what? Everybody knows about this. I believe both Christian Slater, maybe, and later on, Delroy Lindo, when Christian Slater tries to explain the rope-a-dope to him, both say, yeah, they know about it. But yet John Travolta really wants to sell this to us.
My dad is not that much older than Christian Slater, just a few years. And yeah, Muhammad Ali was his childhood idol. So yeah, how weird that these people
wouldn't know,
who are this age wouldn't be familiar with this. It's very weird.
My dad is an well, I don't know if you'd say anti-Muhammad Ali, but my dad believes that many of Muhammad Ali's fights were fixed. And his statement is that maybe Muhammad Ali was the greatest, but we'll never know because he didn't fight anybody for the most part. That's what he thinks.
I thought, that sounds kind of crazy, but yeah. I feel like who cares? Like, I feel like that's even the draw of Muhammad Ali. I feel like his whole thing is he's Muhammad Ali. He's always saying amazing, crazy things, and he's just a character.
Yeah, I guess more my dad
it's not just that he is a great boxer, which he is, but
My father's father, my grandfather, was an incredible boxing fan. So maybe that influenced things. They were just really into boxing in that household. I don't know.
Yeah, so my dad's dad was like a boxer, and his dad was a like everyone in that.
Wow,
family
so
too,
your guys
but
are big boxers
who
too.
knows? Who knows?
That's crazy. Okay, so they have this fight.
I don't know anything about boxing.
I know very little.
But my dad is into it.
So Travolta and Slater, they have this fight. Travolta wins, and then they go back and they've had and I guess they bet $20 on it. And Travolta doesn't want to take Slater's 20, and Slater reveals that in fact he stole the 20 out of Travolta's wallet before the fight, so it really was Travolta's 20. And Travolta still tries not to take it. I was thinking, how many times in a movie does a person just stop the movie to explain a prank that they pulled that you can't appreciate in any way? It has to just be explained to you. I don't know. It's pretty bad. But anyway, then they go and they immediately after fighting without headgear, they get their assignment to fly the top secret B-3 bomber with nuclear weapons in it. Do you think that was a good idea, to get your brain sloshed around with some boxing before you pilot a supersonic jet?
All I know is how just unbelievable, once again, their interactions are with each other, and how bad and crazy it looked when they were flying. Like, it looks so bad and so crazy.
And this is where we find out that Travolta has been passed over for promotions in the past and isn't a senior guy. In the book, I guess, and he's not really but in the movie, or in the original screenplay, he was supposed to be more senior, an even older guy. And maybe Riley Hale was supposed to be older too. Maybe they're both supposed to be older than they are in the movie. And so it was supposed to be, you could maybe associate that Travolta came from a more hard-assed time. This is really mishandled in the movie. They don't give Travolta a character. He's just kind of a lot of crazy shit going on nonstop. But in the book, his thing is that he thinks he's always that guy that has the answers and is always doing everything right. And that he's always like the guy, and everybody else is slack or not sharp. And finally he's had enough of being passed over by people who aren't sharp and people not being able to take his criticism when he's always right. And so finally he's just like, to screw everybody, he's going to steal these. We find out now he's going to steal the nuclear weapons, and he does. He gets in another fight with Christian Slater with the element of surprise and ejects Christian Slater out of the jet, I guess, and then lands the jet somewhere and sends Christian Slater off alone out into the Utah desert, Mount Zion National Park or something.
And it's just, who cares about these people? That's another thing. The interactions that they have in the beginning of the movie don't endear them to you.
No.
They just are so boring. John Travolta is just like, it's so bad.
No, and once again, I think Slater is miscast here. Usually he plays a guy that thinks he knows better than the adults. Really, an old Christian Slater would be better for the John Travolta part, and John Travolta might be better as a young guy in the Christian Slater part. I was thinking the only person who might be able to play the Christian Slater part and make it any fun at all might be somebody like Burt Reynolds, who would just go crazy or something and laugh a lot when he was running around in the desert with the girl. I don't know, but I may have been unsalvageable.
Christian Slater actually is good in this movie.
I agree.
This is something I've realized watching. He's good in this. Like, this is one of the better performances that I've seen out of the movies that I've watched with Christian Slater so far. He's actually the most kind of charming as an actor that I've seen him in this role, weirdly. But it's just, I feel like he suffers from this thing where all of the movies he's in, he's fine. He's not bad. He's not amazing. He's fine. But other people that he's in the movie with, almost always, it's just, the casting is weird. There's just some issue. He just never really gets to the shine. It's unfortunate for him. Because he's actually good in this movie, but the movie is horrible.
He's really good in just a terrible movie. That's right. And it doesn't give him much to do to really shine either. I mean, he gets to show off that he allegedly did most of his own stunts and stuff, and he's in good shape, and he gets to jump around, and he gets to prove he can do action stuff. He got what he wanted out of this. He got a hit movie where he proved he could do action. But there's just not much there that's fun at all. This is just such a bad movie. I had such a bad time watching this movie. I just couldn't wait for it to be over throughout so much of it. And so at this point, I guess to keep going with the plot, there are killers out there killing people that are just hanging out in the national park, and they're out there to meet up with Travolta. Samantha Mathis is a park ranger. The suits find out they've lost these nukes in this plane, and they start trying to come up with excuses. Frank Whaley tells them that they can't do a cover-up because all of these like flight enthusiast people have been out there looking for any sign of this B-3 bomber flying, and they know it flew or something. So if they say they try to cover up that something happened to it, all these people are going to know, and it's just going to backfire. And that's why they don't just do a cover-up, which I don't know why we would care about that. Well, why, I guess that's why. So they're fighting against time with press or something. Then Vondi Curtis Hall leads a team of military guys that includes Howie Long to investigate the crash. Slater wakes up in the desert. He meets Mathis, who knocks him out or something, and is going to arrest him for being out there. And he enlists her to help. And then Vondi, Curtis Hall, and Howie Long and the nukes get attacked by bad guys. Then it turns out Howie Long is with the bad guys, and he kills Vondi Curtis Hall. And then Travolta meets up with Bob Gunton, who is like a rich guy or something that's helping him sell the military shit. I don't know.
I don't even know who anyone is in this movie. I don't know who anyone is. People just come on, and I don't know who anyone is. I don't understand how they really relate to each other.
No.
Because I don't care.
Even after reading, I can't tell you who Bob Gunton even is supposed to be. He's some bad guy who has money, but Deakins doesn't respect and thinks he's a candy ass, and just always they kind of have he's always thinks Deakins is blowing it, and Deakins always thinks that he's just a candy ass or something. But we get one thing here that I noted. I didn't notice it watching the movie, but on IMDb it said that the military requested that once Travolta becomes a traitor, that he take off the U.S. military clothes. And so there actually is a scene where he just changes clothes outside and puts on this weird mock turtleneck and navy slacks outfit that he has for the rest of the movie. It's pretty weird. Yes.
So cursed.
Howie Long joins up with Travolta, and Samantha Mathis and Slater mill about aimlessly. Travolta says he bought time by them believing they have an exposed note. He calls them and tells them there's an exposed core, so they have to send in all this this nest team and all this stuff. What this reminded me of was something out of like a Frederick Forsyth novel, where he just throws all of these organizations and names at you really fast. Or in fact, that's one of the only things in this movie that was interesting, was just finding out what they would send out there. But it was only marginally interesting, and they didn't really deal with it much. Then we get, and he also tells them that Christian Slater stole the nukes that went crazy, not him.
This just reminds me, I hung out with this guy when I was younger who was really old, like he was in his 70s probably, and he was a writer, and he wrote this type of stuff, except it was more, who's that guy? Raymond Chandler. It was more Raymond, he wanted to be Raymond Chandler. It was more he wanted to be Raymond Chandler. So there was this noir aspect to it, but it was also like this. He wanted to be Raymond Chandler, but it was stories about people who stole nukes and stuff. And I just don't understand the type of person who is interested in this sort of stuff.
I don't know. I think it was a bigger deal, there was a market for it, I'm sure. Well, there is sort of there's the nuke noir and the people being afraid of the nukes, like Kiss Me Deadly. It's one of the classic noirs. And it ends with, I think, a nuke going off on the coast of Los Angeles. But at any rate, yeah, this is pretty boring stuff, and we just get all sorts of stunt show kind of things with blah, 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 them trying to track down these nukes. Let's see, we get a part where a helicopter attacks Christian Slater and Samantha Mathis, and he shoots a pistol up into a helicopter thing and blows a guy's brains out as the helicopter comes down. And then, even after all these things, like Christian Slater does so many feats of action and daring do, and John Travolta just keeps telling him via walkie-talkie that he doesn't have any guts. Do you remember this? So I didn't want you to come on. You don't have any guts.
I don't remember that, but I remember Samantha Mathis very nearly gets chopped in half by a helicopter blade, and just has no reaction. 5 seconds later, she has some stupid one-liner or something.
Oh my gosh. The best though, you know how nobody in this movie, you don't have any attachment to anyone. Well, in the novel, there's been a very clear, and I think you see it in the movie too. I feel like there are various stages of how this happened. There was the script, which I imagine had none. And then there's the movie, which has some. And then there's the novelization, which is just rife. They really tried to Pulp Fiction it up. Like John Travolta's part in the movie, you said he has that part where he says, I said, God damn. And there's another part where he says something, where it's like, isn't it cool? Or something like that. It feels like they're trying to make it like a Quentin Tarantino thing, some kind of Pulp Fiction reference. And even, Christian Slater was the star of True Romance, so he has a Christian Slater or a Tarantino tie too. But the novel just constantly had tons of pop culture references. All the characters just make tons of pop culture references. And even things that don't make sense. Like there's something in it called there's like a Sammo Hung nature preserve or something somewhere in it or something that's just named after a Kung Fu star. But Christian Slater's constantly making Kung Fu references. There are tons of references to Westerns, and they're all really dumb and really bad. And just feel like whoever did this in a few days, you know? This is some definitely you bought your drinking money with this at any rate. So they get firebombed at some point. Oh yeah, they make a Molotov cocktail. They jump on a Hummer. She takes him down to a copper mine where they find the bombs and try to deactivate them. And there's something with circuit boards, and Hale accidentally sets the timer instead of turning it off because Travolta anticipated someone trying to turn them off.
When people write these kinds of things, I feel like they don't understand the mindset of someone who would do terrorism. FBI, if you're listening, I would have never, couldn't be me. It's just the times when you think I would fly a plane into a building or something, it's not some big thing, like you were humiliated in the military.
Yeah, no, this makes no sense.
You didn't get your glory. It's not something like that.
No.
And it's also, I feel like terrorism is just you're at the end of your rope and you're going to do something that's easy. People are always talking about the Vegas shooting at the hotel, the country thing where they're like, it must be a conspiracy. And it's like, I don't know, maybe, but getting a bunch of guns and bump stocks and just killing a bunch of people is actually not that difficult. Like driving a car into a crowd isn't that difficult. Even flying a plane into a building. Getting nukes is really hard. It's the opposite of the mindset of someone who would be doing terrorism.
Yeah, and just the idea that
it takes a lot of planning. I can't even imagine how someone would do it.
And how, the way the military is, the idea that you get the guy that's Travolta's age and isn't just always super nuts or isn't obviously nuts, you have the character Dr. Strangelove is much more believable, the guy who's just gone super nuts and everybody can see it. The movie just doesn't make any sense. It's really, to me, just feels like Graham Yost wanted to make something like a Western, and a nuke was a good stand-in for the money car, the gold cart, the train with the gold on it or whatever. You kind of just have this one of those classic Westerns where the people are in different spheres and are trying to meet up somewhere and head each other off and steal his money.
This doesn't feel like a Western to me at all.
Really?
Nothing about this feels like a Western.
Well, they've tried to take away, because
it does not feel like a Western.
They tried to take everything away and turn it into a combination of Indiana Jones and a military nuke movie, fearing the nukes. And you've got the Indiana Jones with the, when they get on the Humvee and the train and everything. The train shootout is a classic Western setup. You would have horses instead of helicopters.
I understand visually. It does not feel at all like a Western.
No, they don't go for that. They don't. There's a weird... The score by Hans Zimmer has some strange elements. Did you notice the music in the movie at all?
I don't remember the music at all.
The score was pretty funny. I thought about listening to it at some point. I was like, this is kind of a weird, neat score that had more ideas in it than the entire rest of the movie did. Oh, also, before they made this movie, or before the movie came out, they had a behind the scenes of it on E! E used to do all these 30-minute behind the scenes on whatever movies came out, and I would watch them because I was just into whatever movie news I could find in the 90s. And they showed them filming the boxing thing and seeing how far apart they are when they're swinging at each other. I remember going to the theater and just it totally blew the illusion and the movie was ruined for me from the beginning. How about all the weird ways John Travolta smokes and holds cigarettes in this movie? How strange is that?
I definitely remember that. His performance is equally or maybe even more psychotic than any performance he's ever done. It's just not even that is worth watching.
No, this movie's not even so bad it's good on any level. Like Travolta is so bad he's almost good, but it's not. This is not a movie worth watching at all. If they tip off the movie tip off from the start that he's kind of going to do something crazy just with how weird they shoot him and everything. And I was thinking like maybe it'd be a better movie if you didn't know he was going to go crazy. But I was like, but I guess in a world with movie trailers, you would always know he was going to go crazy. Oh, I wanted to ask
you something.
Yes, please do.
I wanted to ask you something. This relates actually to Brad Pitt. I was watching, this is not this movie, but Interview with the Empire. I was watching this True Hollywood Story of Brad Pitt the other day. I saw this movie where Brad Pitt plays an IRA guy and he does an Irish accent.
Oh, wow, I remember this movie.
Do you know what movie I'm talking about?
The Devil's Own with Harrison Ford?
Oh, yeah, it's called The Devil's Own. Have you seen, it's with Harrison Ford. Have you seen that movie?
I've seen parts of it. I may have seen it actually, and just have kind of that one and Patriot Games. There are several of those Harrison Ford movies where it's like, I'm not sure I've stayed awake for the entire movie. I remember the movie though, existing.
It just looks so absolutely horrible.
It does.
His accent looks so absolutely horrible, and I really need to see it now. And I forgot to ask you about it before. So
I remember it being bad.
I forgot, but anyway.
I remember bad. Oh, so I guess Slater and Mathis, they dated at some point after Pump Up the Volume, but not during this. I guess that's how allegedly John Woo saw a picture of them together when they dated and decided she'd be good to cast. I think in 1996, Christian Slater was actually dating Christina Applegate, but maybe not for the entirety of 1996. Oh yeah, at some point, John Travolta runs a clock back on the nukes from 30 minutes to 13. I was hoping he'd run it back to a much shorter time so the movie would be shorter. And I did feel like Howie Long and John Travolta had good romantic chemistry. Oh yeah, just so many scenes. You're right. This movie doesn't look good, and it also just isn't filmed well. The action isn't filmed well to be visceral in a way or to make you care. They do so many things that don't make you care. So just like when they're groping around in that mine and trying to get through and everything, it's like imagine if it was shot with shadows and a first-person camera and people groping and stuff. It could be so like intense, but instead it's shot like you're looking at them coming at you, and it's all bright and airy, and it looks like you're at Disneyland. Just no atmosphere or anything attempted in this movie at all.
My one thing that I took away from watching this movie was I kept thinking about Samantha Mathis's teeth. And I think about this a lot, but it's this part in this movie about David Foster Wallace, the end of the tour, and there's some part where David Foster Wallace is talking to the reporter guy, and he's talking about how he doesn't find Pam Anderson erotic because she's too hot or something, and he finds Alanis Morissette really erotic. That's his celebrity crush. And I kept thinking about that when I was watching this, because Samantha Mathis's teeth just look like a normal person's teeth.
Yes.
And I remember finding that like really attractive, finding her so attractive because she just had a normal person teeth, and I don't know, just everyone looks so weird now.
No,
everyone has weird plastic surgery and perfectly white teeth, and I remember thinking that there's something really kind of erotic about her in this movie because she looks like a normal person, and that's the only real takeaway that I had about anything.
That's interesting. I found her really unattractive in this movie. I don't know why. There's just something kind of like kid sistery about her in this movie or something. I can't put my finger on. Too plucky. Yeah, so at any rate, he kills John Travolta in the end, and there's just no sense of like using. You're right. When you say this movie doesn't look beautiful and other people do, I think you're right. And I think that they are thinking of things in a different way. They're looking at things like if you were going to shoot a Travelog commercial or something of getting good exposures on this scenery. But you're thinking of like telling a story, making this scenery look imposing and iconic, like in a John Ford movie. Like how would John Ford have shot this desert? How would have Martin Scorsese? It's like it doesn't give you any feel feeling. You don't feel impressed by the majesty of the canyons or anything. It just, there's no love. Or even, you know, like in the Hulk movie made by Ang Lee, when the Hulk's going around those canyons, there's more style and sweep than this movie has. More love. Yeah, you never get a sense of how far apart the characters are in the desert or anything. Like, it's so bad. We could go through the rest of this plot, but suffice it to say, Christian Slater survives. So does Samantha Mathis. No one else except for all the suits. John Travolta dies.
The ending is something really, really dumb. Like, they just introduce each other to each other because they've never formally, like, introduced each other in the movie. And then the ending, I want to say, is just them, like, introduce, and she, like, pretends she's gonna arrest him or something.
This is a running theme too, because Graham Yost wrote this in the end. Christian Slater gets arrested by Samantha Mathis. Christian Slater and Minnie Driver get arrested at the end of Hard Rain. And also you got to have the big tie up at the end, because we were all waiting on this, is that Deakins leaves the $20 on like a bramble in the fucking or a cactus spine or something after he dies. Do you remember this?
Yes, I definitely remember it, and just being
like, how did this even happen?
Horrible.
That
Another horrible moment.
So bad. Really, the only things, the Christian Slater's performance was pretty good, but it just totally like worthless. And Hans Zimmer's score was kind of fun, but totally worthless. What a terrible movie. Okay, well, do you have any other thoughts before we go to the Slater Raider?
And spoilers.
I don't think so. I think I stated everything all the thoughts that I had about it.
Guess I wanted to give a shout out to the actor Daniel Von Bargen, who is a late actor. He's just in tons of 90s movies and stuff. Is like always that guy as Air Force General Creeley. I wish nobody's character in this movie stood out, so there's no real reason to. Also, with so many great actors, it's like if they picked one role to expand. I think there was a thing in the movie, Howie Long's role was supposed to be smaller, but they liked him in the movie, so they made his role larger and larger. But they had so many other better actors to work with, but I guess none of them were on the bad guy team. There really weren't memorable bad guys to deal with, other than, like, their crew of bad guys was so faceless and bad that just having a guy you recognized as Howie Long became something to attach to that they used. Terrible. Okay, so going to Slater Raider, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give this movie?
I would give it a 1 for sure.
I'm also going to give it a 1. Worthless, terrible. I hated this movie. On a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give Christian Slater's performance in the movie? This is a tough one.
I'll give, tough. Yeah, this is tough. Because, like, I want to give him a high score because he is good in it, but it's such a bad... Oh, gosh. I'm going to give him an 8.
That's very fair. I'm just going to take off 2 points because, I understand why for his career he did this. This is a career movie more than, like, I'm sure he didn't sit around and be like, boy, I love this script. As a career move, it worked, but I really wish that I was watching him in a different movie, so I'm only going to give it an 8. Yeah. I'm going to give it an 8 as well, because he really couldn't have done better. Okay.
Yeah, he really did what he could with the material.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how hunky did you find him in this movie?
Once again, I realize, I just don't find him attractive, but I'll give him a 6 for this one.
Okay, I'm going to go with, he does all the action. That's pretty hunky. So I'm going to go with a 5. No cool style or anything vibes off his character in this, but just doing all the action, I'll go with a 5. And then on a scale of 1 to 10, how much more would you have liked to have seen Christian Slater in this movie? This is another tricky one.
This is a tricky one. Because I would have preferred, since this movie is so horrible and everyone was so horrible in it except him, I guess I would want to see more of him, probably. This is the first one where I feel
you need more.
Want more Christian Slater.
I'm torn, too. But go ahead.
What are the rules?
10 is you'd like to see a lot more Christian Slater.
What are the rules again for if I... Okay.
0 is the right
I think I'm going to go with an 8.
Okay. I think that's fair. I think I'm also going to go with an 8 because there's a little part of me that wishes that none of him was in this movie, so I'd never have seen it. But as far as the movie actually, because I feel like there's a world, well, I probably would have seen it anyway, just out of, once again, good vibes after Pulp Fiction. I probably saw most of the movies John Travolta made in the late 90s. And I agree with you that Face Off is a much better movie. It's a ridiculous, fun movie. It's not perfect. I think that towards the end of Face Off, you get just way too many scenes of Nicolas Cage wandering into a room, like half beat up, like looking crazy at one after another, where I'm just like, can we wrap this up?
It's actually just it's too long.
It's just too long.
Having watched Face Off, it's definitely too long.
But still, it's worth seeing. It has one of my favorite all-time moments in a movie ever is in Face Off. It's when they're giving, when they show John Travolta the operations they're going to give him to make him look like Christian Slater, or not to make him look like Nicolas Cage. Do you remember this in Face Off? Where the scientists are showing him on a computer the different little things they're going to do to him?
I vaguely remember. I'm thinking of the scene where he actually sees himself for the first time as Nicolas Cage, and he has a meltdown and breaks a mirror and stuff, which I love.
No, before he has the surgery to go undercover as Nicolas Cage, the scientists show him a little run mock-up of all the things they're going to do to him. And I'm sure you can appreciate that, that you're doing a high-budget movie with probably a high ego star who's getting paid a lot to be the star of this movie. But when they're showing Travolta the things they do, they show him they're going to pull back his hairline. But then there's a shot where they show him how they're going to carve off his love handles. And then they cut to his face and he looks all sad, like he knows he's fat. Like, it's really funny.
No, I don't. I do not remember that.
Yeah, I just don't remember a time where the movie star got told he was too fat.
That part.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Like, yeah, we'll just carve away those love handles, and he's like, Yeah, well, there we go. That's definitely an F. Give it an F. But yeah, I definitely thought Face Off is a much more fun movie than this. I don't like The Rock, but I do like Face Off. And I guess John Woo, big ups to John Woo and John Travolta for having fun together on this and making a better movie next time. Maybe I should rewatch The Rock. This movie has the almost
exact same plot as The Rock, but The Rock is a stupid movie. Don't get me wrong. It's extremely stupid. But I just think Nick Cage and Sean Connery it's fun for me. Anyway.
I really like just in the Face Off getting to see them try to play each other and do and they're, like you said, they're the two people you think of as being kind of laughable actors on some level. Just being really fakey. We're having things that are so over the top. Wow. Yeah, I'd like to just burn Broken Arrow, although I did get a little bit of a kick out of reading the book. Oh, are you reading anything right now?
No, I don't think I'm right now. I was thinking what I was going to talk to you the next time. I was like, I'm going to read. There was something I was thinking about reading, but now I don't remember. I've been really caught up and I'm trying to kind of remodel a lot of stuff in my mom's house. I'm redoing her patio and stuff and sewing these. My parents had this old rattan furniture that used to be living room furniture, and I am taking that and making it the patio furniture. And it needs cushions and all this stuff. So I made cushions for it and I'm repairing this furniture and doing all these things. So I haven't had a lot of time for reading. I've watched some movies and stuff. Like I said, I watched Dogfight and some other things. I'm going to rewatch My Fair Lady because that was one of my favorite movies when I was a kid. And I really want to rewatch that. But it'll be a little bit before I dig into a book, probably. What about you?
I just started reading Genesis, so that'll be short. It's not that long of a book, the Bible book. Next time, we'll be talking about the movie Hard Rain with a special host, Elston Gunn.